Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and welcome to Bloodlands. Season of Blood is truly the perfect time for us to finally go hard on Blood builds because they've never felt better. As theorized before launch, Blood Surge was absolutely brilliant for power leveling thanks to the fact that it requires next to no aspects to run, and new overpower feels very good. However, much more demanding compared to that is the Bloodlands build when it comes to aspects, which makes better use of the new mechanics for Necromancer in Season 2. With the fact that we can now generate blood orbs through our blood skills, we can rely upon them much more in our gameplay. We can heal more effectively with those blood orbs, and healing in general actually. We can crunch all those blood orbs at once from range using the Gore Quills aspect to suddenly refresh our guaranteed overpower via the new key passive update. Lance logically just hits harder than Surge and is safer to play when it comes to pushing harder content due to the fact that you're ranged and Surge needs you up close. Basically, once I swapped to Lance at the key point I had the right gear, it has been devastating. I entered Torment mode back at level 53, which felt like a pushover relative to all the changes we've seen for the game, but more importantly, here I am fighting a World Tier 4 Vershan at level 67. Barely any Paragon points going, certainly not the glyphs I want. Bloodlance is best when there's a pack of enemies to tendril, spawning all the blood orbs you need and popping them for that sudden smash of overpower burst, as well as all the resource gen that would provide. In single target, much like Surge, it has its moments when you get the lucky blood orb spawns and so on, but it's obviously better in AoE. Despite that, I'm pushing hard single target content while lower leveled thanks to the raw power of blood builds. We're just so survivable and tanky thanks to all the raw health, the fortification, the massive amount of healing we have. It's just good. But yeah, I think I've hyped things up enough. Let's explain the build. Let's start with a quick rundown of the skill tree, which has changed short in this season, but it's pretty standard fare with some minor changes. Starting with the basic attack, we're going Hemorrhage because it's going to generate blood orbs at a 20% chance as you use it. After you pick up a blood orb, when you enhance this, you turn it into an AoE, which generates more essence. So you want to be using this regularly in between your other attacks to make sure you're generating lots of essence in general. We go for Acolyte's Hemorrhage so that we get the nice attack speed while healthy. On the next tree, obviously it's 5 out of 5 on Bloodlance, which we level even more with item contribution. Enhance it and go for Supernatural because this is the one that's going to give you the guaranteed overpower as you cast your 6th Bloodlance. We're also going to enhance its power by picking up 1 level of Unliving Energy and 3 out of 3 in Imperfectly Balanced, improving our core skill damage like Bloodlance, but making it cost more essence, which we tackle in our own ways. You will see I also have 1 level in Hued Flesh. This is just because we have a spare point in the build, and this allows us to generate a corpse occasionally by RNG chance, which can be useful for corpse tendril, but we have our consistent ways through, say, Blood Mist, which when we enhance, it actually lowers its cooldown when we overpower. But more importantly, Ghastly, this is the way we guarantee have corpses in a fight. At the start of a fight, we've not killed anything, we can start with this Blood Mist and then generate some corpses to then tendril to get the fight going. That's all it is there for that tree. As we go down to the next tree, obviously you pick up Decrepify, Enhance, and go for Abhorrent, giving us a lucky hit chance to restore our cooldowns. The most important 2 abilities we care about for this is Corpse Tendrils and also Bone Storm. Since we are using Decrepify, which means we're targeting enemies to slow them and make them deal less damage, we also want to do more damage to those, so 3 out of 3 amplified damage means we will be. Also, I pick up Death's Embrace to give us some close damage reduction and improve the damage we deal to enemies we're close to. And since we dash through them using one of our vampire skills, we will actually be in medium to close, so this will happen relevantly. On the next tree, it's the most important one really. We have Corpse Tendrils, which we enhance as always, and we're going for Blighted because this gives us a 35% chance to spawn a blood orb when damaging enemies. As you pull a pack of enemies, you spawn a bunch of blood orbs and then you pop them all in one go with the next lance using Gore Quills. So this is a major power spike, obviously. Then we have all of our new passives for blood, which you want to pick up 3 out of 3 in all of. 30% more healing. Our blood skills have that chance to spawn blood orbs, even more chance against bosses. The all-important Tides of Blood, majorly improving our overpower damage on blood skills. Coalesce Blood, we deal more blood skills damage when healthy. And finally, Drain Vitality, which gives our blood skills a chance to actually fortify us for some of our maximum life, which is very important because it also increases our overpower. On the next tree, we come down to the ultimate. Yes, it's boring, but it's just the best. Bone Storm. You cast Bone Storm and you're dealing damage around you, sure, but then you have the damage reduction by 15% and the 20% raw more crit strike chance. Since crit strike actually matters now for overpower in a real way, having more in the build in a consistent way is a big power spike. While we're here though, we're obviously sacrificing all our minions, so full standalone and Memento Mori. And finally, 3 out of 3 an inspiring leader means when we're healthy for 2 seconds, which used to be 4 seconds, you get 12% attack speed, which helps us shoot out more blood lances faster or hemorrhage to get essence back. Lastly, obviously the key passive, which is now better. The time is reduced by 2 seconds each time we consume a blood orb for a heal or overheal of a certain amount of health. So that's the skill tree. What about the Book of the Dead? It's pretty much standard stuff. Skirmisher sacrifice for the crit strike chance. Obviously for the mages, you're going for the overpower sacrifice with bone mages. And then obviously for the golem, it's the blood sacrifice for the max life increase. So yeah, skill tree and Book of the Dead, pretty standard fare based on what we expected, but things are interesting when we look at the Vampiric Powers. We are running 5 for a total of 7 Ferocity, 2 Divinity, and 11 Eternity. Let's just go around the circle, starting with the obvious one, Metamorphosis. When you evade, you turn into a cloud of bats and become unstoppable, and it deals some physical damage, which is very nice, but most importantly, it inflicts a Vampiric Curse. The Curse is essentially a new debuff. Imagine it like you've chilled an enemy. We care about this combo most of all with the Prey on the Weak power. Enemies are vulnerable while affected by a Vampiric Curse from your other Vampiric powers. So when we apply Metamorphosis' debuff, the Vampiric Curse, by dashing through enemies, they become vulnerable, increasing our damage. And then this also just gives you like an increase to your vulnerable damage in general, just for some reason. So obviously this synergy is really good, and I do think it's what a lot of builds, if not most builds for sure, are going to be running this combo. Another obvious one is Blood Boil. When your core skills overpower an enemy, you spawn 3 of these blood drops, which you run around and pick up, and they explode, dealing physical damage. It's pretty nice, and when you get a lot of them, it can be pretty ridiculous. But more important, we get a free overpower every 30 seconds, a guaranteed overpower. And since we're an overpower build, that's just perfect for a blood build. So I think these 3 are like a non-negotiable in a blood build. The next ones are interesting. Firstly, we have Hemomancy, which is brokenly strong and particularly good for blood builds. I'm at level 3, so I'm getting the 80% of max life here, but I believe it starts at 40, then goes to 60, then 80. What it does every 4 seconds is use the percent of your maximum life and deals it as physical damage to nearby enemies every 4 seconds. When you actually deal damage in that way, you get 1% of your max life back, which is awesome healing. So every 4 seconds you do this burst of damage, and the more health you have, the more damage it is. So high health builds benefit from this most of all. It's so strong that a lot of people are using it while leveling. It's kind of nuts, but for a blood build in particular, it's so effective that you kind of have to run it, and it's so strong that I'm wondering if they're going to nerf this. Lastly, it's Ravenous, which gives you a % chance to increase your attack speed by a % of your total move speed for 6 seconds. It's a really long time. Basically, you get a load of attack speed, which we want so we can shoot out our lances as fast as possible to reach the 6th blood lance for the guaranteed overpower as fast as possible. Also, it really helps with generating essence with hemorrhage. I feel like all of these are really, really good, that it's unavoidably strong. I was looking at a Cursed Touch, but I'd have to give up something here that I just don't want to. So these are the ones I've gone for. Alright, it's time to look at my pretty jank setup with the Paragon right now. Start with the basic board, which as you can see, early on, I've actually gone down to resilience and picked up all the nodes around it. That is because, yeah, elements are really scary now, and having extra resistance to them is going to be really important. But you get to benefit from the magic nodes around it that give you extra max life. So this is a nice start. Anyway, you make your way to the node, and I'm picking up the obvious choice of Blood Drinker. Blood Orbs fortify you for your max life. That means you deal more damage with overpower. You're more resistant, you're more likely to be healthy, but it requires 40 intelligence, which is a fair commitment, but we can get it even without upgrading this glyph, which makes it so good. I pick up both knowledge and preservation, but come up out of preservation for the defensive, and make my way to the first board, which should be pretty standard for everyone in terms of blood builds, and that's the Bloodbath board. The node increases your overpower damage by 35%. It used to actually be more than this for guaranteed overpowers, but hey, with the rebalancing of overpower, it is fair enough. It's very important, this board, not just for the legendary node, but also some of these rare nodes that are really good. Extra damage while fortified and max life, and then Powerhouse. extra damage while healthy, but more importantly, the raw overpower damage increases, which are quite hard to get. Around this, you'll find magic nodes that also give more overpower damage, and they're very, very valuable. So I start by entering the board and coming to the right and focusing on coming through Thick Hide and picking up the legendary node first to get that big bonus. Then I come to the left and make my way to the glyph, which as you can see I'm running Essence because I don't have the glyphs that I want. What you should be running, ideally as soon as possible, is Dominate. When you overpower an enemy, all damage they take from you is increased by 12% times for 5 seconds. Also, for every 5 willpower purchased within range, you increase your overpower damage. Why am I not running what is the best glyph for a overpower build? Because I cannot physically activate it because there's not enough willpower around here before it's extended in range. So currently I'm running Essence because it's the only relevant dexterity glyph that I have. I'd much rather be running specifically Territorial because that will give me damage reduction against close enemies and another damage type that will be more consistent. But I literally don't have it, and it's one of the last ones that I need typically. But yeah, ideally you get Dominate to level 15 as soon as possible to increase its radius so that you can run it. And that's obviously what I'm working on right now. Anyway, I activate this in this way and make my way up before going to the next board, coming up to the powerhouse node and picking up all of the magic nodes around it. Then we'll come to the next board, which I've just started on. As you can see, it's the obvious one of Blood Begets Blood. Blood Orbs grant extra damage for 5 seconds, and we're picking them up constantly, so that's amazing. But also, again, the board is quite largely about the nodes you find, the rare nodes. Aggression here is a big overpower damage increase. I will make my way up to the legendary node and pick that up next, and then come down and around and grab the glyph socket once I have enough points to really work on this board. If you're interested, I'm probably going to do Sense of Death as the next board. Alright, it's time for another bit of a jank section while I am level 68 and have not got everything idealized. Obviously, I will explain my thinking and reasoning. Let's start with the offensive aspect. You need to be running Gore Quills with a Bloodlance build. Ideally, that will be on a 2-hand weapon to improve the power and relevancy of this aspect. However, if you're still leveling and you haven't got a 925 weapon like me, you'll be changing your weapons so often that it's a bad idea to put your aspect on this. So instead of on your main weapon, it should be on the second best thing, which would be your amulet. On my amulet, we have Rathma's Chosen, which gives you attack speed when you overpower the blood skill, which is amazing. If I was putting the Gore Quills on my amulet, well then Rathma's Chosen would have to go on one of my rings while I'm leveling, and that's what I was doing. So with those explained, now let's look at the one main resource generator aspect that I'm running, which is the Starlight aspect. Gain 20 to 40 of your primary resource for every 25% of the life that you heal. So I'm getting a lot of that because I'm getting a lot of healing. However, there's actually one aspect that I would rather run here for obvious reasons, which you can actually get in the codex. It's the aspect of Potent Blood. While healthy, Blood Orbs grant 10 essence at the bottom roll and 20 essence at the top roll. This used to be while full health, but now it's healthy, so it's even better. The reason I am not running this is because I don't have a roll for it, I don't have a drop. And since I have a reasonably high roll of Starlight, that's actually doing me pretty well right now. But ideally, I would be running Potent Blood, and since that's in the codex, you probably should too. Now, since I am running Rathma's Chosen on my amulet because I have a weapon that's sticking around, I have a free ring slot. So I put Sacrificial Loop on it, which you may have noticed when we were looking at the Book of the Dead. You can see the all-important overpower damage doesn't say 25% times, but 31% times, and that is really, really good. It also improves the rate at which I get max health by times from 10% to 12%, so that's good too. And there's a slight increase to my guaranteed crit chance from 5% to 6%, so that's also nice. Now let's go through the armor, starting with the helmet, the chest, and the legs. It's what you should expect. Might, Disobedience, and Shielding Storm. They're all really good. Disobedience is still basically the best one you can get, with Might closely following that. If you're running Bone Storm, you should be running Shielding Storm as your third defensive. It's still ridiculously good, so not too exciting to talk about. It's the same 3 we always run. We have one more offensive aspect, and obviously it's Grasping Veins, which used to be ultra important, and I would always put it on my amulets, but with crit not being what it was, obviously it's not as high a priority in this case, but it's still here because, you know, crit actually is relevant to overpower now, so it's very nice to have. But you can get this in the codex, so there's no reason not to have it. On the boots, it's awesome, man. Ghost Walkers. While unstoppable and for 4 seconds after, you get a 25% plus movement speed bonus. And as a Necromancer, we desperately need that. Here's what it's like while I walk around normally, just pretty slow Necromancer speed. And here's what it's like when I actually dash, so I get the unstoppable effect and I'm sprinting around for 4 seconds after. And then by the time that it runs out, I'm ready to dash again for that nice bonus of speed. Metamorphosis provides that unstoppable for 4 seconds at level 3. Also, I refuse to run boots that don't have the inherent passive that gives movement speed for 1 second after an evade, because I want that sprint, because Necromancers are so slow. I don't think I'm going to run any other aspect than this for pretty much this entire season while I'm running meta. What I'm obviously missing is any relevant uniques. And on that front, there's only one that I would really point out, which is the new Banished Lord's Talisman. When you spend 300 of your primary resource, your next core skill is guaranteed to overpower, and your critical strikes that overpower deal 120% times increased damage at a top roll. Obviously, that's really, really good, but you're gonna have to get that unique first. There is another one that we might consider, which is Blood Moon Breaches. Enemies affected by at least one of your curses take 70% increased overpower damage from you, which is obviously really great, but we'd have to give up a defensive for that, which might be hard to justify when pushing towards higher tier nightmare dungeons, but by the time I have it, I can test it and we'll see. In terms of affixes that you're looking for, obviously I've got a jank setup here, but your number one focus on every piece you can get it on is max health increase, increasing your overpower potential, but also your survivability. So on every armor piece that you can get health, you want it, and as much as you can get your hands on. Following that is overpower damage increase, and you can also get some interesting blood orb ones like damage improvements after you pick up a blood orb, which can be useful, but more importantly is the one that increases how much blood orbs heal you for to help with the key passive. So if you can get that, I would also recommend that. For the guaranteed ones you're absolutely going to need, on the gloves, obviously you want as many ranks of Bloodlance as possible, and on the amulet, you want ranks of Tides of Blood as much as you can get. Other than that, it's just what you'd normally expect. Can you get some crit or vulnerable damage increase? Can you get your essence cost down? And so on. Defensively, it's the standard stuff though. Raw armor increases, damage reduction raw increases, or damage reduction from close or far targets. But most importantly is improving your maximum life, and that's also offensive and defensive. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, this build can be a bit more complicated, especially when compared to something like Bone Spear. You're dealing with this build-up of Rathma's key passive to actually land the guaranteed overpower. Not thinking about that is fine. You probably end up accidentally using it on something like Hemorrhage fairly often though. That's fine if you've picked up a Blood Orb and you want to AoE guarantee overpower enemies with that. But being aware of that mechanic is important. You want to stack up the crit bonuses of Corpse Tendrils, the debuff of Decrepify, your self-buff of Bone Storm, and having dashed through them using meta to debuff them with the Vamp Curse. Then you want to go hard as hell with a guaranteed Bloodlance overpower. From your 6th Bloodlance, sure, but also ideally your key passive, but also ideally your Blood Boil Vampiric skill as well. Do that all in one window, you hit 3 guaranteed overpowers while juiced up, and you destroy pretty much anything, obviously. If you play without thinking, it's going to be fine, but if you play with that in mind, you can get some satisfying burst when you need it, when you're dealing with a strong enemy. Ultimately, let's just keep this simple. As usual, apply Decrepify to everything to keep them debuffed, dealing less damage, and you dealing more damage to them. Jump through your targets using the meta dash to debuff them and make them take more damage. Ideally, Tendril pull them all into one spot, then dash through them with that evade. You'll have your extra crit, and then you can go ultra hard on them with your Bloodland spam. Whenever you pick up or consume a Blood Orb, remember to pop your AoE Hemo. That'll generate more essence and nice AoE damage there. And lastly, I like to use Bone Storm either defensively when I know there's a pack of elites coming up I need to deal with and be survivable against, or just use it offensively when I'm planning on hitting something really hard and just use it at that time. Outside of thinking about, is my Rathma's guaranteed overpower coming up? Should I be careful not to accidentally consume it with a Hemorrhage or something? That is pretty much the gameplay. It might seem more complicated than it actually is. But there you have it. That is my current build that I'm running for pushing into 70 plus and beyond. For now though, I hope this video encourages you to try Blood Surge or Bloodlance in the season where it's feeling the best it's ever been. For now, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thanks for watching, we'll see you next time.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.